Hi, everybody. Today is Wednesday, June 10th, 2020. So I thought I'd do another video, microcast. And this topic starts this weekend when I was listening to an episode of Core Intuition, where Manton was talking about how he had kind of like um, decided not to use to-do list anymore because he just thought it was kind of getting in his way. And actually, that's kind of a misrepresentation. It wasn't that he wasn't using them anymore, but he was evolving his basic ideas of management stuff. But he had pretty much made the point that he was going to follow the kind of base camp ideal of like not keeping track of every little bug in the system, but kind of let the idea that the bugs and the features that need to be built for will be brought up by customers over and over again. Like, it will be impossible to ignore the most important things because the most important things will be asked for on a more regular basis. Whereas compared to Daniel, who has a more specific track record of keeping track of everything in fog bugs. But anyway, this came up because I myself, I do track my tasks and my bugs. I have different rules, which I'll talk a little bit about today. But specifically, I want to talk a little bit about OmniFocus, which is a task management app for Macintosh that is built by the Omni Group. And this application was built around an idea from a book called Getting Things Done, which was very popular in the late 90s, early 2000s. Still is popular, but definitely had its peak there. And the idea of getting things done, well, it's a big idea, but like one of the ideas is the idea of getting everything out of your brain so that way you don't have this like mental weight of trying to remember to do things. The idea is that you get everything out of your head, you put it into a system that you trust, and that helps make your day easier to go. Specifically, and when you do put it in a system that you trust, the idea is that you may have a project that has 20 steps, but you kind of can mark off the thing that is to do next. And so that way, anytime you can walk up to the project, you can figure out, well, what do I do next to achieve this larger goal? Anyway, so I've been a long time OmniFocus user, but I always had trouble with it in that the problem I faced was I liked it as a trusted system to put in lots of projects, but I had this problem where when I was just like sitting at the computer for the day trying to figure out what to do, like I was getting lost because I couldn't browse every project. And so a couple of weeks ago, probably about 6 weeks ago at this point, I took the time to kind of really look at a feature of OmniFocus called custom perspectives, which basically lets you kind of build out a view of your task. And so I actually ended up building a custom perspective that's kind of based around like my target for the week. So my own personal pattern here is that I use OmniFocus. I keep all my big projects in there. I'll bring up a screenshot. So here's a picture of my OmniFocus. I've kind of blurred out some of the projects. I don't really want to talk about them publicly. But suffice to say, I've got all my projects in the column, and I group them up. So I group them up in the context of my life. So I've got my main side project, which is Clubhouse hosting. I've got my company, which is Zorn Labs. Sometimes you'll see tasks in there related to just general company management tasks like paying taxes and things like that. Then you've got the Affiliate Elixir meetup, which I help run. Then you've got personal stuff. And then you got future projects. Future projects are things like, I want to buy a house someday. So, I keep track of, what it would take to buy a house. A lot of future projects are like marked as on pause, but they're there, to kind of keep them in my head. So for each project, you have tasks, and then each task you can put like a title and a summary, and you can link in files and URLs and stuff. Anyway, this isn't a general demo of OmniFocus, but more of just the general ideal. So these are all my projects, and what happens for me is Sunday is actually a day where I usually try to tie up loose ends and plan for the week ahead. And so one of the features of OmniFocus and getting things done is this idea that you have this review process. So every once in a while, you just review all your projects, make sure that they're still to be done. Maybe you've decided not to do it anymore. And so there is a review tab in OmniFocus. And so usually on Sunday, I'll go through and mark all of my projects as reviewed. A lot of times, like editing the project, adding more context, deleting some projects, And I take the moment there to basically flag the projects that I am interested in. And I will sometimes flag an entire project in which this will kind of flag all the tasks inside of it, or I might have a project that I just flag a couple specific tasks of the project. So it might be a bigger project that will be accomplished over the course of a month or so, but I want to focus on step 1, 2, and 3 this week. And so what I've done is I've built this custom perspective called This Week. And let me bring up a screenshot of what that looks like. So in the professional version of OmniFocus, you can create a perspective. And this is just a complex kind of filtering of display of your stuff. And so for me, I will grab any objects that are marked as due soon and available. Available meaning like they're not on pause. Due soon, so you can, mark tasks, with a specific date. I try not to do the dates unless they're very solid requirements, like paying taxes on a certain date or something. And then all available that are flagged. And so I get this view, and now basically every time I sit down to do some work, I can just highlight this week, and I see everything that needs to be done, which is really cool. Now, just to kind of put a bigger idea wrapper around this post, so there's this idea of like, where do you keep all your stuff, and a lot of it is context specific. So obviously, if I have a client project that I'm working with and I need the client to kind of see those things that need to be done, a lot of times those are more technical tasks, and so there'll be a ticket management system of some sort. If they're already using Jira, I'll just use Jira. I won't kind of push something new on them. My personal preference is a thing called Pivotal Tracker, which I really like Pivotal Tracker because it lets you build your tasks, and you do assign a point value to them. So like for me, I use a Fibonacci scale, and so their points are like 1, 2, 3, 5, and 8, I believe. Nothing over 8, because and so 8 and the points for me, I generally try to have a connection to hours, but I don't do any kind of like time tracking with like a watch unless I'm doing invoicing. If I'm doing billable work, I'd use a time tracker, but for my personal projects, I don't. And the thing I like about Pivotal Tracker is that like over time, you will get a general sense about how many points you're completing in a sprint. And so if you start to assign some specific dates for like a release goal, you will see kind of like hard lines in the view, but they are based off of behavior, not like specific planning. So you kind of get a sense of when things will be done, but you're not like, one of the problems I have with Jira and a couple others that lets you make you manually build a sprint is that, when you start to kind of go off the rails and things are taking longer because items are being added to the sprint midway and so forth, it's you have to manually rebuild the schedule, where I feel like Pivotal Tracker does a good job of keeping the schedule dynamic based off behavior. Anyway, that's kind of a long way to say that another article that kind of came up this week, which I thought was kind of interesting, was this article called "There Are No Bugs, Just To-Dos," and it kind of goes over the core value items of a task management system, basically saying that the minimal values for a task, in this case, a task should have ownership, a task should have position in a queue, a task should have state, and a task should be broken down so it should be clear as to what's going on. And then he goes over some anti-patterns, including priority. So like tasks having priority are kind of bullshit. Like, it's like a task should have an order, but like having a priority is not really that valuable. Ticketing type for them, they put as an anti-pattern. I flip-flop on this. So for me, in Pivotal Tracker, I obviously track features. I also mark specific stories as bugs. There's a third option for a task in Pivotal Tracker called a chore. And the big difference between those three is that features have point assignments, bugs do not, chores do not. I typically avoid the chores, even though like a chore would be a chore. The idea of a chore is basically a task that needs to be done, maybe to keep a project healthy, but has no outward facing user value. meaning like a security update to like a web server or something. And because they don't have point value, like the work of a chore doesn't really get represented in the week sprint. And I don't have a lot of value in that, but I do have value in the bug ticket. Like, I like to know that like this is a defect in the existing software, meaning like the existing software has an expected behavior, and this bug is breaking that social contract of the behavior. And so I like to track the bugs, because usually what happens is I will track bugs, and then on the beginning of a new sprint, I usually try to work on bugs first, killing the simple ones and then just thinking about the more complex ones. So having the bug type in there for me is valuable. For other people, it might not be. Then it talks about other anti-patterns, including software version, severity, ticket swamp. Anyway, this is an interesting article. You can check it out. I will link it in the post. I will also link this, which is a post that was posted again this week. There's a lot of stuff this week about tests, so I figured I'd do the video. From Mac Stories and Federico on how I use custom perspectives in OmniFocus. I browsed this. I haven't read it yet, but if you're thinking about OmniFocus, you can definitely check it out. OmniFocus itself is a bit on it's on the expensive side. I mean, so you can buy different versions. You can buy it on the Macintosh, or you can buy it on the phone or the iPad, or you can buy kind of a subscription to all of them. I own it outright. Like, I paid for, because they introduced the subscriptions after I was already an active user, so I had already paid for like in full. So you can yeah, it's a little hard to see here. So you can buy the Mac version for $99, or you can do a monthly subscription. You get access to all the iOS and Mac, and they actually have a sync server, so you can keep your stuff synced within your little network there. But yeah, that's pretty much what I want to talk about today. I mean, I think at the end of the day, these ticketing systems are about making your life easier, and things change over time. And so a lot of times ticketing systems and the way you manage your tasks will change over time. Whatever it takes to kind of make your job easier and it makes you productive is really the goal. It's not about one specific system to rule them all. These are all just ideas. So hopefully these ideas were helpful to and informative for you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.